views, opinions, and content of this show are those of the host, guests, and callers. They do not necessarily reflect those of Local Matters Broadcasting, LLC, its owners, partners, affiliates, assigns, or heirs. Having said that, it's now time to say good morning, St. Johns County. Welcome to the weekly radio show of the St. Johns County Council on Aging, better known in our community as the COA. We are your local nonprofit agency who for the past 51 years has been leading and advocating for the dignity, independence, health, and community involvement of older St. Johns County residents. I'm Brian Robinson, Program Director for COA, broadcasting to you live from the studio of WFOY 102.1 FM, your local radio station for news, sports, and talk. Before we get into the show, let me remind everyone that if you have a question, comment, or a suggestion for a radio show topic, you can send your email to radio@coasjc.org. Again, that's radio@coasjc.org. And if you have a question for our guest this morning, during this morning's show, you can send that to me. I have my email up in front of me. Again, that's radio@coasjc.org. In the studio this morning with me is Development Manager Amy Robinson. Good morning, Amy.
Good morning. Good to be here.
And joining us is a former member of our Board of Directors, Michele Carmine. Good morning, Michele.
Good morning to both of you as well, and all your listeners.
It's great to have you here. So what I like to do in this first segment is just love for our listeners to learn more about you. So if you would just take a few minutes and tell our listeners about yourself and how you ended up serving on the COA Board of Directors.
Thank you very much. Yes, so my family, my husband, our son, and myself moved here in 1994, and we were involved with seniors through senior housing, assisted living. And I decided that I wanted to get committed and involved with many other people who were in need of some aspect of assistance in the community. And I went to the Council on Aging and met the director at that time. And it was an exciting time because they were down on Old Mission Street. And boy, did things change from there. And was able to not only join the board, but also bring some other board members on who were very instrumental in getting the COA basically where it is today. One of my proudest decisions and involvements was being on the Personnel Committee with other board members to hire Kathy Brown, who is still a legend.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I started, and that was in 1995. I was asked to be on the board, and as I was just saying to Brian and Amy, I'm not so sure when the board meeting was that I officially joined. But if you're people who have lived here a long time, you remember the COA, the Council on Aging, actually St. John's Council on Aging, down on Old Mission. And it was very active. And they had dinners all the time. They had a bar cart, like you were on an airline, and served drinks and things like that. But it was very much fun, and there were a lot of participants, but not as much visibility as we had hoped at that time. So the first decision the board made was to try to recruit members of the Council on Aging to support the operations, and they had a fairly large group that joined for different amounts. So that was one of the first fundraising activities I remember. And we were quite surprised. There were companies in the community that gave big widescreen TVs that looked much different than what we have now. And local car dealerships like Beaux-Arts participated. And it was pretty exciting. We had kind of a raffle if you joined and became a member. And they also owned two other buildings on the street. They owned what is now presently the Limelight Theater. They owned that building. That's where the main headquarters was. And then next door we had the First Memory Center. and had care there during the day, respite care for those who are doing caregiver, was more specifically for different types of dementia victims. And then there was a 2-story building that was the building where the social services and other departments of the COA had actually recruited, worked every day. So there was a decision to move and go to the old health department, and that was a very big deal. And many people came then, and it was just explosive how many people would attend, like the annual. We didn't have a breakfast then. We had an annual dinner, and that building was chock full. And then Kathy started to talk about, and the board, about putting a building on one of the last sites on the Matanzas River. And that's how River House came about. And then we thought about, how are we going to pay for this? So we had a capital funding campaign where you could contribute to different parts of the building. So we were happy to do that, and I know many other board members did, and other people in the community. That was a very exciting time.
So you have been, up until recently, on the board almost basically 30 years. So,
yes.
So you've seen a lot of growth and over the years. And so looking forward to asking you some more questions about that. We're going to go ahead and take our first break right now. And when we come back, we'll continue our conversation.
Perfect.
All right, everybody, we'll be right back after these commercial messages. And welcome back to the weekly radio show, the St. Johns County Council on Aging, here on WFOY 102.1 FM, your local radio station for news, sports, and talk. I'm Brian Robinson, Program Director for COA, joined in the studio this morning by Amy Robinson, Development Manager, and former member of our Board of Directors, Michele Carmine. And Amy's going to ask our next question.
So, Michele, we were wondering what COA services and programs have you become the most passionate about in your time on the board?
Well, the ones that I have become most passionate about, obviously, because I have a background with dementia and Alzheimer's and memory care, is the memory centers. We had a facility close to the Coastal Community Center, so I was very involved with that. And I think it's so important for caregivers to have a place where they can take their loved ones and get some respite care themselves, even though it's just for the day or a few hours. That they don't have to worry about leaving the person at home alone and things like that. That was one thing. And then I also am very passionate about Meals on Wheels. I think that nutrition is really important, and it's incredible what the volunteers who work in that program do. I just have so much respect for them. In the summertime, I used to volunteer regularly to pick up routes because a lot of snowbirds participate, couples mainly. At that time, I don't know the combination now, but it's also a good place for a person who may have lost a spouse to get involved one day a week or more and help out with Meals on Wheels. And in fact, one summer, I taught our son how to drive, and he actually worked a route with me. And I remember him saying, I don't know what to do when we go in there. And I said, well, watch. Well, I know these people. And, it's really important. The most important thing for, I think, individuals is to have a good trust foundation. And so I taught our son how to get involved in conversation, not specifically about whether they're eating their meal or they like them. Some people would tell you. But what to look for when you're in the home. Do things look right? Do they look tidy? Do things seem really disheveled? Ask if you can place their meal in the refrigerator, because that's a really good sign of whether they're eating their meals or not. So one of the things that we tried to do as a board was to encourage people to donate to the Meals on Wheels program, because there are a number of people who can't afford their meals. And at that time, I also would go occasionally, maybe once or twice a week, to the Coastal Community Center and have lunch, and I would observe people who were sharing their food with other people, which was a good sign that maybe they didn't have enough money to buy other food items. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was very interesting, how caring the group of elderly were. And even though we were smaller then, it was just a beautiful thing to watch people participate. And of course, always volunteer. I think that it's a very cathartic feeling for people to get involved. And the area of aging and aging services, we all may be in need of that one day, whether from a standpoint that we can't afford to buy all of our meals, or we can't prepare them any longer, but you still want to remain as independent as possible. And I think that's so key, that you can stay in your own environment at home for as long as you can without being compromised. Mm-hmm. And I also think that it's really helpful for children. I used to do a lot of outreach when I worked for the Assisted Living Trade Association in the Washington, D.C. area. I kind of had a hotline, because people would call and ask me about facilities that were all over the country. And the main group of callers were young adults who maybe lived in Manhattan or Philadelphia or Pittsburgh or wherever, California, and they'd say, I went home for Christmas and my mother's neighbors were saying she doesn't get her paper, she doesn't pick it up unless I bring it to her. I know she's not eating right. Please check her refrigerator and take a look at her house and really try to inspect her a little bit physically, because there may be things wrong, but they just don't want to say because they want to stay home. So there are ways to accomplish that for maybe permanently forever till the person goes on, but passes on. But I think that it's really important that children do that, as well as volunteers, because I think it's a really good outsource for the individuals that are involved in that program. I'm not sure, Amy, at this point, I'd ask you how many people are still in need of meals in the county. We used to keep really accurate statistics.
I believe our waiting list is right around 300 to 350 people that are currently on the waiting list, and that's waiting for subsidized meals.
Right,
so,
which is so important.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's a key way for people in our community in St. Johns County to offer some donations to help with that aspect of that program. To imagine that there are 300 people that aren't getting meals regularly, that is that's really something to not close your eyes. We need to open our eyes and try to reach out to do things like that.
Yes.
So who would you suggest, if we did do that they contact?
They can contact me at, they can call our main number, 904-209-3700, and ask, say they're interested in donating, and they'll be connected with me. And, or you can ask for me by name, Amy Robinson. And, you can also go on our website, coasjc.org, and up in the top right-hand corner, there's a Donate Now button, and you can donate online, and just when it asks if there's a special designation, you can say Meals on Wheels, and we'll make sure that the money goes to Meals on Wheels.
And lastly, the program that I also thought that was really exciting was the transportation program, because that started as well while I was on the board. And I remember having a long discussion at a board meeting, and really with Kathy Brown after, that she should get involved with John Micah. I knew him because of a family friend who was a congressman from my husband's hometown, Newport News, Virginia. And they worked together, these two members. And I also knew Tilly Fowler at the time. And I talked to Kathy about getting involved with John, and boy, did she.
Well, that's great.
Yeah.
All right. So my next question kind of ties into that, because, not only is it the programs that you're passionate about, but, as you've been on the board for so many years and you've watched COA grow and expand over the years, what accomplishments are you most proud of?
Yeah, sure. Well, let's start with Kathy Brown. And we can end with Becky, Yanni, and Amy, and others who have worked there for many years, and yourself, Brian. But it's an amazing organization, and I'm so happy that I was part of that. I also was happy that the transportation program was able to develop the way it did, and Kathy won awards for that, or COA did specifically. She would hate if I just mentioned her, but and that was wonderful. And then just all the events we had, and all the people that became part of COA through volunteering. And I think that's just a wonderful thing. And it gives you so much comfort to do that. And I also think that there are a lot of people, seniors like myself, I consider myself a young senior now, who can find so many ways to participate in programs that COA offers, specifically for my age group, River House. And there's art classes, there are language classes. My goodness, there's even classes to learn how to use your iPhone, and photography classes, and many support groups, such as Widow to Widow, and there's Widow and Widowers, and I'm not sure specifically, Amy, what that group's called. That's in Nocatee. But I do believe that those programs are wonderful and really help people who suddenly find themselves without their spouse or their good friend or neighbor that they were very close to. It's a very cathartic, and also gives you some empowerment to continue on. And you don't realize as a person how much you have to contribute until you start volunteering.
Yeah, and we've had you mentioned River House and the classes and stuff that we have there, and we've had individuals tell us that, like for instance, we had one woman whose husband had passed away, and her children live elsewhere, and so she kind of felt lost, right, and was starting to get very depressed, and somebody recommended she come to River House. She started coming, and she literally said that the River House classes saved her life, because she had become so depressed. And so it's great to hear those type of stories. All right, that music means we got to take our next commercial break. We'll be right back after these messages with more questions for Michele Carmine. And welcome back to the weekly radio show, the St. Johns County Council on Aging, here on WFOY 102.1 FM, your local radio station for news, sports, and talk. I'm Brian Robinson, Program Director for COA, joined in the studio this morning by Amy Robinson, Development Manager for COA, and former member of our Board of Directors, Michele Carmine. Before I ask you the next question, Michele, I just want to let our listeners know that next week we will have Charlene Beamer and Jennifer Baran with Community Hospice as our guests, so tune in next week, same place, same time, right here on WFOY 102.1 FM. All right, my next question for you, Michele, is this. As you know, COA is in the midst of strategic planning. We did a survey last year in the community for anybody 55 or older, and we asked participants to choose the services and programs that they feel that they need to improve their quality of life in St. Johns County. As someone like yourself who falls into this age demographic, what do you personally need or want to improve your quality of life?
Well, I think my quality of life is great right now. I just had a knee replaced, and I was able to rid my knee of incredibly painful arthritis, personally on a physical standpoint. But I think socialization is key, and I think that there's some programs that I'm interested in at the River House that I hope to participate more in next year. And but remember, classes fill up quickly. So if you're interested in a class or a program, you need to get on the website and look at the monthly calendar and think about it and think about your time. I also have thought about the travel program. And I know specific board members, and if you're listening, you know who I'm talking about, who have been on several trips with the COA travel program and have really enjoyed themselves. So that's another way. These are kind of feel-good things for me personally. And personally, I also think that I'd like to go back and volunteer at the Meals on Wheels program. And I encourage people, like I did before, to think about it. You can do 1 day a week. You could volunteer for a certain period of time when they don't have as many drivers. And I think it would be an experience that you'll say, thank you. I'm so glad I finally did this. And also to think about donating, because I want to get back to 300 people who don't eat regularly, and especially seniors who need a lot of nutrition. I see that in my own blood work. Protein's key. Mm-hmm. So I think that's one thing. I also think that the events are wonderful too, like Christmas on the River, or if you play golf, the golf tournament. All of those events are very nice things to attend, and to have some fellowship during holiday season with the River House, or in the summer with the annual gala and golf championship. I think that's a really nice time. Although I think because of rain or hurricane, they had it later this year, the golf portion, but it's very important and a big way to contribute to the funding that COA needs. There's always something we can do with that. And never forget, they have event planning there. So if you have an upcoming wedding or some type of event where you would like to have caterers come in and rent a portion of the River House or all of it, you really need to consider that. It's an incredible view on the river.
Mm-hmm. It's a beautiful location, beautiful building. And what I love about it is it was built in a way that, now it's well over 10 years old, but you wouldn't know it. I mean, it was constructed so well. It still is a very, very beautiful building in great condition and on a great location. So that's great.
And that's one of the reasons why we opened up for events. That was a very important decision that we made as well, and I'm very proud of. We were trying to think about not only the capital funding campaign, where you could buy the lobby or the doors of the building and things like that, but to it be ongoing so that we wouldn't have to always rely on state and federal funding, that there would be a regular source of revenue. So the events that people hold there is a good source of revenue to do that ongoing maintenance of the building, Brian. It's really keeps it going, and I thank people in the community and those who may not be in the community have chosen River House to be the site for their event.
Mm-hmm. All right, I'm going to let Amy ask the next question.
So how can people get involved with COA in your estimation and make a difference as the needs of St. Johns County seniors grow?
Well, again, I say volunteer in all caps and participation in all caps. try it. You may like it. It's not for every soul, but I have never had a person call me back and say, I'm sorry that you recommended that to me. Mm-hmm. And I have a friend who lives in Jacksonville, and her mom lived in Ponte Vedra with her stepdad, and they decided to place him somewhere, and it was the hardest decision for her, but she couldn't handle his care. And we had lunch, and I suggested that she attend the support group that is held regularly at the Ponte Vedra Center. And she really didn't like the idea. She felt like she could handle the disease, specifically how it was affecting her husband. And I said, I think you're going to find this different. Just go one time. Mm-hmm. And she's not still going, but she's still actively involved with the group that she originally was, that was part of her regular meetings every week. And they have lunch together, and I was recently at her 85th birthday, and two of the people who were involved in the group were there. It was a really nice thing to see. And she always thanks me, but I said, don't thank me, thanks COA, because they saved her.
Mm-hmm. And, we have a lot of snowbirds that come down and volunteer with us and from different parts of the country. And they have said to me on several occasions that back home where they're at, their version of Council on Aging is nothing like ours. Like that it does not do the same type of programming or services. It's not as robust as ours. And so I want to commend you and all those who have served on the board and various leadership of COA over the years, and just what you've been able to accomplish to bring it to what it is today, to be such a robust organization with so many programs and so many services to offer to our seniors. And we just recently had the secretary from the Department of Elder Affairs with us, and she is somebody who has traveled around the whole state of Florida to all of their different Council on Agings, and she said that St. Johns County is a gold standard. And so I think that is a phenomenal statement that she made, and something that you and all the board members and everybody at COA should be proud of.
Thank you so much, and I can attest to what you're saying about the Council on Aging, or whatever their counterparts are called, and I'm familiar with a good number of them from around the United States.
All right. Well, that music means we've got to take our next break. We'll continue our conversation right after these messages. And welcome back to the weekly radio show, the St. Johns County Council on Aging, here on WFOY 102.1 FM, your local radio station for news, sports, and talk. I'm Brian Robinson, Program Director for COA, joined in the studio this morning by Amy Robinson, Development Manager, and then a former member of our Board of Directors, Michele Carmine. And we've been asking Michele a bunch of questions. She's served on the board close to 30 years and has watched COA grow over that course of time, and so just a lot of different questions that we've asked you during this time, and so we thank you for that. My next question is this: if there's anybody that's out there listening this morning that knows absolutely nothing about COA, and I do run into people who have no idea who we are and what we do, right? Even though we've been around for 51 years, we have 165 employees, we serve over 4,000 seniors throughout the county, but there are still people who don't know what COA does and who we are and so forth. So if there's somebody out there listening, what would you want that person to know about our organization?
I think the COA is probably one of the best organizations that I've ever been involved with. There's some other really great ones in St. Johns County, but here specifically for senior services, it's the place to go if you are a senior. If you're not a senior, it's a place to think about for maybe your mom, again, bringing up the whole issue of all of a sudden becoming a widow, or your dad a widower, and also friends and neighbors and relatives who may be suffering from some type of a memory disorder. There's a lot of support there, or Parkinson's, and other groups that they have. And then also, I think, the day can be pretty long when you start to have more time. And there's only so much golf you can play, so much fishing you can do, and shopping and things like that. And what a better way to say, you know what, this is the year I'm going to learn how to speak Spanish. Or this is the year that I'm going to go ahead and volunteer for a program that I heard about that's called Meals on Wheels, or any other program. The COA can use assistance in any department, whether it's just working with Amy and stuffing envelopes for a fundraiser, or participating with the fundraiser, or asking others in the community to provide gifts to the fundraisers that they're having. Something as simple as that, and do it with a friend. When I worked for Meals on Wheels, I would see several people that I knew who had recently retired in my neighborhood. And they took my advice and they went down and they helped in the kitchen. And it's another way to get your children involved, your teens especially. They have community service hours. COA is a nonprofit. So it's a good way to sponsor a group. I had the football team at St. Joe's Academy on delivery day to come and unload the heavy goods from the trucks in the summertime after their football practice, and then they would actually help prep meals and serve meals. And it was a good way for them to see what goes on and to feel good about what they're doing and to get themselves involved with the seniors. There's so much you can learn from a person who's older. And I'm old, but I'm not that old, but I can still every day learn from a person that has been there and done that. It's amazing to me the stories you hear from veterans and other groups that happen to be, guess what, we're old. And age doesn't discriminate, and we'll all be there. So I say, try it, you may like it, and I don't think I'm wrong.
I think of some of the volunteers that come into Coastal Community Center, and some of them volunteer every day, Monday through Friday. They come in and they set up the little breakfast bar area with getting the coffee ready and things like that. Then they stay around, they help to serve lunch to the seniors, and they do it every day, Monday through Friday. And so I sat down with a few of them one day, and I was like, what brings you here every day? Like, why do you volunteer every day? And so the one person said, well, I retired. I kind of did the things that I was wanting to do after I retired. I traveled and I did this and that. And then I was like, okay, now what, right? And so they started volunteering. And she said, now it's just like she can't imagine her day without coming in to volunteer. And she said she loves the fact that she walks in and people know her. People know her name. There's a sense of community that is there, So there's it's just it's not only is it good for the people who are being served, right, by the volunteer, but it's also good for the person who is volunteering. It brings them a lot of personal fulfillment.
Yes, I think that's so important. And I think that's what people would find, that not only are they doing something for others, but they're also doing something for themselves. And you don't realize that until you get involved. So, again, participation and volunteer in big caps, and really try to execute that. Because I think you'll feel better about yourself, and you'll certainly make others feel great about themselves too when you're offering someone, an individual, a meal, or participating at a program that the COA is having, and just helping people sign up for things. And then I just think that it'll make a big difference in many lives, including your own.
And you also mentioned about events, coming to the events, part of that. And a couple events that we have coming up that I wanted to let Amy have a moment to talk about is our centenarian luncheons. And one of the things that we like to do is spread the word, because we want to make sure that as many people that fall into that age demographic know about it and are able to be invited to come. So, Amy, you want to share a little bit more details about that while we have a few minutes left?
Right. Well, coming up on May 1st, we have our centenarian luncheon at River House that we've been talking about, that beautiful location here in St. Augustine on the Matanzas River. And so people who are 95 and better, so we're needing to get the word out that if you know someone who's 95 or older and we want to honor them, so they can just call our main number, 904-209-3700, and say that they have someone who wants to come to the centenarian luncheon. And we can give lots more information over the phone. So that's May 1st at 11:30 a.m. at River House. And then we have one in Ponte Vedra, because there are so many seniors to honor. So we need more than one location and more than one luncheon. So that's going to be May 15th at 11:30 a.m. And so that location will be having a centenarian luncheon there as well. So,
and is that the same age range as well, 95 and up?
Yes. So 95 and older, and you can call our main number, 904-209-3700, and just let us know that you want to come to that location.
And it's a wonderful meal, and then each person gets recognized for being there. And then I think anybody over 100, we then ask for them to share their advice on their longevity. And so it's always been fun to hear some of the different reasons that they give for being able to live so long.
Yeah, it's a beautiful event. And there are table sponsorships available at both locations for $250, and you get to come with your table sponsor, and it's a great time honoring those folks.
All right. Well, that music means it's time for our show to end. Michele, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you again. I enjoyed it immensely, and I hope people go to the COA.
All right, folks. We'll have you here. Tune in again next week. We'll see you then. Bye-bye.